نستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن خير الكلام كلام الله، وأحسن هدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، كل ضلالة في النار. As we continue in the book on Sunday, December the 16th, 1:32 p.m., 2018, the Gregorian calendar, which agrees on the Hijri calendar, which is Rabi' al-Thani, that they call it Rabi' al-Thani. On the Hijri calendar, the second of Rabi' al-Thani, of course, Rabi' al-Thani, which is the seventh on the year 1440 after the Hijrah, Mustafa alayhi salatu wasalam. We continue in Usul al-Thalatha. We were discussing the principle faqul, as we try to get and summarize a lot of these principles so we can move on a lot of different other affairs so we can complete the book. If everyone looks in their book, we were discussing the principle where it says, فَإِذَا قِيلَ لَكْ مَا الْأُصُولُ الثَّلَاثَةِ. If it's said to you, what is the three principles that is obligatory upon one to have knowledge of? Then say, knowledge of the servant, or the knowledge of the servant of his Lord and his religion and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if it's said to you, who is your Lord? Then say, my Lord is Allah, the one who cultivated me and cultivated all of the creation by his bounties and his blessings. And if you continue, as we continue to read the principle, it says, if everyone looks in their books, it says, وَهُوَ مَعْبُودِي لَيْسَ لِي مَعْبُودٌ سِوَاهُ. والدليل قوله تعالى الحمد لله رب العالمين وكل ما سوى الله عالم وأنا واحد من ذلك العالم. If we continue to read, we're going to continue the principle. It says, and Allah is my Lord, and I have nothing or anything or deity of worship other than Him. And the evidence and proof of that is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And anything that is other than Allah is alam. They say alim, alam, with a fatha on top of the lam. Alam. And I am one of those, and I am one of the alam. I am one of the alam, not alim. Alim means scholar. Alam means creation, or from the creation. If we continue to read the principle, it says, and if it's said to you, how do you know your Lord? Then say, by his signs and by his creation. And from his signs is the night and the day and the sun and the moon. And from his creation, from what Allah created, is the seven heavens and the seven earths, and what is in it and what is between it. So you'll find, Ya Ma'ash al-Ikhwa, these principles as we go on to say, as we emphasize constantly the importance of memorizing these principles and how vital they are to the servant, to have knowledge of it. And not having knowledge of it, and that's it, rather, enlightening one to the point where he has no reluctancy in this. He has no reluctancy in embracing its belief, and he has no type of wavering of what is correct in regards to these principles, because we keep saying and we repeat over and over again, these are the questions of the grave in which Allah Ta'ala will have all the creation responsible for answering. As all of the creation will be responsible for these three questions. And you notice that he said, what are the three principles? So the three principles, as we continue to mention constantly and remind everyone, these are the three questions of the grave. The grave in which no one will be able to save us except our iman and except our righteous actions. And what we abstain from of those evil actions in which Allah Ta'ala, if He gives tawfiq to His slave or to His servant, then he will be from those who have passed the tremendous test. The tremendous test which is now embarking upon the hereafter, and the life of this world has been done and concluded. As we know that once one's life is concluded, then his day of resurrection has started. As you'll find Ahl-Ilm that they say, Man mata faqad qamat qiyamatuh. Whoever's died, then his day of resurrection has started. You'll find there's a statement even in Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu, where he said that if he passed the three questions, meaning if he answers the three questions correctly in the grave, meaning that if Allah Ta'ala gives tawfiq to his abd, if he gives success to the servant to answer those questions correctly, then he has now passed something tremendous. Because that, inshallah, is the greatest sign that he will be on the day of resurrection from those who will be saved and will enter paradise after he has passed that stage and that phase. The phase is, which is the interrogation of the angels. The interrogation of the angels in the grave is the most frightening and horrific and terrifying stage of one's part of his creation. Not say life, but from his marahil, from the stages of existence. As we know, the human being was brought out of non-existence. Then he was brought into this dunya, to this world of trials and tribulations. Then after this world of trials and tribulations concluded, he embarks upon another life. That life is what they call al-haya al-barzakhiyya, the middle life, meaning from the time where he lived to the eternal abode, which will come on the day of resurrection when everyone stands. So these questions of usul al-thalatha is of the utmost importance because it's preparing for the interrogation of the angels. It's the interrogation of the angels is something, like we said, horrifying and terrific and tremendous. You'll find that Uthman ibn Affan, that he said about the three questions or the interrogations of the grave, that if one passes it, listen what he says, وَإِن تَنْجُ مِنْهَا تَنْجُ مِنْ ذِي عَظِيمَةٍ وَإِلَّا لَا إِخَالُهَا إِلَّا نَجِيَةٍ. And he said in a other, Uthman ibn Affan, he says, وَإِن تَنْجُ مِنْهَا تَنْجُ مِنْ ذِي عَظِيمَةٍ وَإِن لَمْ تَنْجُ مِنْهَا فَإِنِّي لَا إِخَالُكَ إِلَّا نَاجِيَةٍ. He says, for verily, if you was to pass the questions of the grave from the angels interrogating us, he says, then tanju minha tanju min dhi azimatin. He says, then you have survived of something very, very tremendous. When tanju minha tanju min dhi azimatin. You have now passed from something tremendous. Wa illa la ikhaluka illa najiyah. Except that if you do not pass, then you will never be successful. For the questions of the grave and preparation for that is having knowledge of these three principles, in which the great Imam, like we said, rahimahullah, wrong book. Usul al-Thalatha. It's the wrong book. You don't have your book? So the questions of the grave is like we said, one of the most tremendous and frightening stages of one's existence, in which we all will embark upon once all of us die. And may Allah Ta'ala save us. For part of preparation for answering those three questions is just like what the great Imam that he mentions, it says here, knowledge of the servant of his Lord and his religion and his Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Notice that when he said this principle, and we will repeat it again. If you go back to your books, it says, if it's said to you, what is the three principles? Which is obligatory upon one to have knowledge of. He said, then say, knowledge of his Lord and his religion and his Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So notice that he said the three principles is a question of the question of the grave. Then he goes on to what? Explain, if it's said to you, Man Rabbuk, who is your Lord? Then say, my Lord is Allah, the one who cultivated me and cultivated all of the creation by his blessings. We talked about last week that cultivation, it breaks down into two types. We said there's tarbiyatun amma, there's general cultivation, as we said, and that general cultivation is for all of the creation. What type of cultivation is that? Meaning what Allah gives of everyone, whether they be Muslim or Kafir. He gives them of provisions and guidance, meaning the general guidance of what will rectify their worldly affairs or their affairs of living. And we know that is clear and evident and manifested what we see every day, that we see non-Muslims and Muslims are provided for and given sustenance, and they're giving knowledge of what will rectify their worldly affairs, whether it be general secular knowledge, or whether it be from them raising and cultivating their children of what will benefit them and giving them provisions and giving them food to the end of it. That is a general cultivation for everyone, a Muslim and a non-Muslim. Then we talked about the meaning of cultivation in light of the principle here is the specific cultivation. The exclusive specific cultivation, which is only for the believers. And we said that type of tarbiyah or that cultivation is a tarbiyatul imaniyah, which was the cultivation of belief in what Allah has sent down. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives an extra cultivation, meaning that specific cultivation to whom He wills. And not everyone will receive this special exclusive cultivation, meaning of believing in Him and what He sent down of revelation. And not only that, but Allah putting in the heart success for one to perform righteous actions. That is a specific cultivation which Allah only gives to certain individuals. So, the tarbiyat al-khassa, or the specific cultivation, is the cultivation of success, meaning what is connected with the heart of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides in faith and also gives them something extra, which is to be inclined to do righteous actions. That's also from Allah and His cultivation, which is specific. Notice that the author that he said, Rabbani wa Rabba Jami' al-Alameen bi ni'amah. So if we go back to the principle where it says that if it's said to you, who's your Lord? So my Lord is Allah and the one that has cultivated all of the creation. Who's cultivated me and cultivated all of the creation by His blessings and bounties. طيب. If you look in the first part of the principle of what we're discussing now, it said, my Lord is Allah, the one who cultivated me. What type of cultivation is that? Is that the first or the second? That Rabbani. He's talking about the mu'min. He's talking about the believer. That type of cultivation is specific. The cultivation of what? Of Iman. Meaning of a belief in embracing what Allah sent down and believing that the message of Allah was the prophet and messenger sent to all humanity and giving success to do righteous actions. So our Lord, so it says He's my Lord that cultivated me. That is a specific cultivation here. And if you look in your books again, it says, and He cultivated all of the creation by His blessings and bounties. So when He's talking about all of the creation, now He's speaking about a believer and a non-believer. So what type of cultivation is that? That's general. That's a tarbiyat al-amma, a general cultivation. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says Jami'a al-alameen, 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 everyone means al-alameen, not al-alimeen, al-alameen. With a fatha on the lam, means all of the creation, or the creation of Allah. Al-alameen is makhluqat al-Rabb tabarak wa ta'ala, meaning all of the creation of Allah. So anything that's created is called al-alam. Al-alam, not alim, alam. As we say, alam means creation. Alim with a kasra under the lam means a scholar. The blessings of Allah Ta'ala are plenty and the numerous that cannot be counted. There's so many. Notice in the ayah, Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Al-Luqman, ayat number 20, He says, وَأَسْبَغَ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعَمَهُ ظَاهِرَةً وَبَاطِنَةً وَأَسْبَغَ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعَمَهُ ظَاهِرَةً وَبَاطِنَةً. You'll find there's an ayah where Allah Ta'ala says that He has abundantly given us and bestowed upon us His blessings openly and inwardly. Type. What are the blessings that are openly? I think that's self-explanatory, and I think that doesn't even have to be explained. We know there's different ni'am of Allah Ta'ala that's outward that we can see. Whether it be from food, or whether it be from drink, or whether it be from sustenance, whether it be from clothes, whether it be from sight, whether it be from smelling, whether it be from hearing, whether it be from talking, whether it be from the day, the night, of children, of our wives, of our spouses, our houses. It's too many that could be counted and enumerated, which is from the outward blessings of Allah Ta'ala that we receive every day and some of us take for granted. Then you have, what is the inward ni'am, the inward blessings that He's saying here in the ayah, Surah Al-Luqman. So what are we talking about? A person would think that we deviated from the principle. We didn't. If you look in the principle, it says, the one that cultivated all of the creation by His blessings and bounties. So that's what we're discussing, His blessings and bounties. His blessings and bounties. Right. So we said in Surah Al-Luqman, ayah number 20, it says that Allah has bestowed and given abundantly. He's bestowed upon His servants His blessings openly and likewise inwardly. Now a person will ask, what is the inward blessings of Allah? The inward blessings of Allah, no doubt, is of guidance and insight and being guided to embracing what's correct of belief and performing righteous actions. So a person would think, that now me believing what's correct is also a blessing and bounty from Allah? Absolutely. And also a person would ask, me performing righteous actions is also a blessing from Allah? We would say absolutely. Even one's intelligence, that one should not forget that one's intelligence and what he's been given of talent, a person with certain people would say, of talent. One person will think, well, what type are we speaking about? Yeah, well, certain people Allah has given being blessed to be very intelligent. As far as in their understanding, to able to grasp and comprehend something very quickly. And that's a tremendous blessing from Allah that a lot of us, that certain other people were not given. Certain people were given intelligence to measure certain things accurately and have numbers memorized easily. All those are blessings from Allah that Allah gives to whom He wills. Certain people have talents in reading and expressing themselves and able to communicate and articulate and are able to disseminate information, whether they're good teachers or what have you. As we all know, and we know that there are people that have beautiful voices to recite the Quran, and certain people that do not have that. All of those are the different blessings that Allah has given of openly and inwardly. But the greatest of all those blessings is the blessing of Iman in belief and performing righteous actions. That is the greatest blessing that Allah can bestow upon anyone. There's no greater blessing than the blessing of Iman, of faith, and performing righteous actions and abstaining from what Allah has prohibited and abstaining from affairs that makes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala angry with His servant. There's no greater bounty than that. And if one is tested in the greatest bounty that Allah has given, then he needs to rush to a doctor without any reluctancy. As we know, a lot of our brothers and sisters are tested in this bounty here. They are being tested in their religion. Just as we know the greatest ni'mah of Allah is the greatest blessing that Allah bestows upon His servant is believing what is correct and and receiving the guidance to perform righteous actions. That's the greatest of blessings that Allah Ta'ala bestows upon His servant, as Shaykh al-Islam mentions in his book, or his profound statement that he says. He said, أَعْظَمُ كَرَامَ لُزُومَ الْإِسْتِقَامَةِ. You'll find a tremendous profound statement that Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah says. He said, the greatest of honor that Allah can bestow upon the servant, أَعْظَمُ كَرَامَ, the greatest of honor and karama. Listen to what he says. The greatest and the most magnificent and greatest of honor that Allah can bestow upon a servant, luzum al-istiqama, that he clings and he sticks to uprightness. That he clings and sticks to uprightness. Just as the opposite of that, the most greatest turmoil and humiliation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can deprive a servant of is him being what? Being misguided, and him being what? Deprived of proper guidance and being tested in his religion. That is the greatest of humiliation and the greatest of disgrace that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give, that He can deprive of any servant. So it's the opposite of the extremes, the opposite of what we just mentioned. So the greatest of bounties and blessings is that Allah. Stop right here. I don't want you to exert yourself. So the greatest of all blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can bestow is the blessing of guidance and believing what's correct. And not only that, everyone, but also giving success after that foundation has been laid in their heart, to be being what? Given the tawfiq to do righteous actions. And from those righteous actions, as we know, is establishing the pillars of Islam from praying his 5 salawat every day, and learning Tawheed is the head of all of that, and what monotheism is, and a proper understanding of it. And also from what those righteous actions is perfecting one's character. That's also from righteous actions. Righteous actions is comprehensive for a lot of affairs. And we know the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he said, أَكْمَلُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِيمَانًا أَحْسَنُهُمْ خُلُقًا. He said the most greatest and the most complete of believers in their faith is the best of them in their character. The best of them in their character. So all these are from righteous actions. So the greatest of these bounty of Allah is this, what we mentioned. And there's nothing more severe, and there's nothing more dispraiseworthy or disgrace that Allah can restrict or can hold back or deprive anyone of, except that he be deprived of guidance, of his faith and his belief, or him being tested in his religion. That is the greatest of afflictions. When one is being tested in his religion, he needs to hasten towards a doctor immediately, just as he would not hesitate to when he hurt himself or he received some type of injury that would cause him to die. We would We would call an ambulance immediately to save his life or her life, right, everyone? That how one should react when he or she is being tested in their religion. There is nothing greater of an affliction than one being tested in his religion. A person would say, how is that now more detrimental than one dying? Because if one's religion is intact and he dies, and if in his abode is Jannah, then ultimately he's what? He succeeded. But if his body is now, let's just say, intact, and then out of nowhere he dies while his religion is being tested, or he's not upon what's correct of belief, then it could be, as a result of that, he could be from those who are the inhabitants of hell, either dwelling in it forever, or being from those who had to be purified in it momentarily, then brought out. And that still ultimately, whether it be an ultimate disgrace or a semi type of disgrace for entering the punishment of Allah Ta'ala, in both circumstances, is something that the slave never wants to be tested with. So that's the reason why the greatest of all afflictions is one being tested in his religion. There's no test that is greater than that. Even the test of losing your loved ones and losing your children or things that are valuable and precious to you, of what we deem to be what? An affliction if we was to lose it, whether it be our car, whether it be our house, whether it be our children or our wealth. These are all things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised in His book that He was going to test us with. He was going to test us with our wealth, test us with who we love, for whom we love, test us with our children, test us with our families, test us where our wealth is good, and that sometimes our wealth will be restricted or it will be now restricted in certain times. Basically to say, we will have good times and hard times. We'll have times of ease, and then we'll have times of what? Of calamities and afflictions. This is all what Allah Ta'ala has mentioned in this book. However, listen to what Ibn al-Qayyim says. Ibn al-Qayyim says that these affairs, if the servant, if his belief is intact, he said how these afflictions can turn into what? They can even be resembled, and they can be blessings. Person would say how? Listen to what Ibn al-Qayyim mentions about this. He says, كَنِعْمَةِ الْمَكْرُوهَاتِ. He says for the mu'min, for the one whose faith is intact, he says afflictions can even be a what? Can be a blessing. He said calamities can even be a blessing. Listen to what Ibn al-Qayyim, he says, وَكَنِعْمَةِ الْمَكْرُوهَاتِ التي تصيب العبد. قال ابن القيم, فَمَنْ صَحَّتْ لَهُ مَعْرِفَةُ رَبِّهِ. Now listen to this. The sisters, are they with me? It sounds like people are a little bit talking or speaking. Just, okay. فَمَنْ صَحَّتْ لَهُ مَعْرِفَةُ رَبِّهِ والفقه في أسمائه وصفاته علم يقينا أن المكروهات التي تصيبه والمحن التي تنزل به فيها ضروب من المصالح والمنافع التي لا يحصيها علمه ولا فكرته بل مصلحة العبد فيما يكره أعظم منها فيما يحب. Allahu Akbar. Listen to the benefit of Ibn al-Qayyim. Listen to what Ibn al-Qayyim says in his book called Al-Fawaid. He said, like the blessings and bounties of what we detest, the blessings and the bounties of afflictions and calamities. Listen to what he goes on to say. He said, the calamities that afflicts the servant. Now listen to what he says the prerequisite is. He said the prerequisite, فَمَنْ صَحَّتْ لَهُ مَعْرِفَةُ رَبِّهِ. For the one whose belief in Allah is sound and is correct, and he is rectified, his belief, and he has knowledge of Allah's names and attributes. So he's starting off by the foundation, meaning by the one whose belief system has been purified. He has the pure sound belief. And his what? His conviction and his creed is correct. He's rectified it. Now listen to what he says. He has knowledge of Allah's names and attributes. He will have knowledge with surety. He will have knowledge with surety that calamities and things he detests that afflict him, and trials and tribulations and what he is tested with. Now listen to what he goes on to say. He says it's from the types of benefits. From the types of benefits. From the types of benefits that his knowledge cannot enumerate or count. Listen to what he goes on to say. Rather, maslahatul abd, the benefit of the servant of what he hates, is greater than those benefits in what he loves. So if a person has a sound creed and belief, then Ibn al-Qayyim, that's it. Nobody now starts thinking. That was it. That's what he said. What do we take from this, everyone? So you see how Ibn al-Qayyim and his deep way of thinking, rahimahullah, is to the point where he said he brought something extra, in which a lot of people probably wouldn't even think. He brought something extra to the point where he said that even calamities is considered a ni'mah from Allah. Calamities is a ni'mah from Allah. That calamities and afflictions and trials and tribulations, if the person has the correct belief and creed, they can be considered also likewise a blessing and a bounty from Allah. What does he mean by that, everyone? For example, we know that one being afflicted in his body with his beliefs intact will allow him to be raised in levels and degrees with Allah if he contemplates his reward with Allah and he remains steadfast and patient, that Allah will raise his level. So that's a benefit for him, even though he's being what? Tested with a calamity in himself as far as physically. As far as it being physical. So ultimately is what? That's a blessing from Allah. or we know the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where the Prophet ﷺ talked about if the abd, the servant, is tested, where Allah Ta'ala took away his or her eyesight, that if he remains or she remains patient with that calamity in this world, Allah Ta'ala also likewise will grant them paradise in the hereafter. So these calamities and these are just examples, but the examples are plenty. We're not just saying and that's it, but there's many. But this is to show how what afflictions and calamities, if one has rectified his belief, can turn into what, everyone? Blessings and bounties from Allah. And he said to the point where these type of calamities of what the abd or the slave detest is greater than the benefits in what the abd or the servant and what he loves. Because as we know, everyone, that pressure, or excuse me if you want to say, let me switch it, that diamonds are made with extreme what? Pressure. That something special is made through what? There's something special that's perfect and beautiful, that it only is made by if pressure is applied to it. And we know diamonds are most greatest of what? Things and precious of what we believe or what we love. And they're only made by what, everyone? They're only made if they're put under the most extremist and roughest of circumstances. That's why the greatest of mankind, the Prophet ﷺ, was the greatest of those who received calamities. The greatest of those who received calamities, and he was the greatest man that walked on this earth, ﷺ. And he was the greatest of those because of what he said, أَشَدُّ النَّاسِ بَلَاءً الْأَنْبِيَاء ثُمَّ الْأَمْثَلُ فَالْأَمْثَلُ. The greatest of those who are put the trial and test are the prophets, then those who are like them, and those who are like them. Just to get back to the point of what we were mentioning about blessings and bounties. When the Imam in his book, if you look at your books, everyone, it says, "My Lord is Allah, the one who cultivated me and cultivated all of the creation by his blessings and bounties." So we explained this with a little bit more detail what everyone would think. Just to leave this part off, Allah Ta'ala says in his book, a tremendous ayah, which I think it's in Surah Al-Hadid, in which Allah Ta'ala says in his book, لِكَيْ لَا تَأْسَوْا عَلَى مَا أَصَابَكُم مِّن مُّصِيبَةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فِي أَنفُسِكُمْ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مِّن قَبْلِ أَن نَّبْرَأَهَا إِنَّ ذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ يَسِيرٌ لِكَيْ لَا تَأْسَوْا عَلَى مَا فَاتَكُمْ وَلَا تَفْرَحُوا بِمَا آتَاكُمْ وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ كُلَّ مُخْتَالٍ فَخُورٍ. Allah Ta'ala says in his book, he says, nothing afflicts you of afflictions. And I think it's Surah Al-Hadid, when I remember. Nothing afflicts you of afflictions. ما أصابكم من مصيبة في الأرض ولا في أنفسكم ولا في أنفسكم إلا في كتاب من قبل أن نبرأها. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, nothing afflicts you of calamities and afflictions, of anything that takes place in the earth, nor in yourselves, or amongst yourselves, meaning, of course we know specifically to anyone in himself. And I think everyone knows what type of afflictions they are tested with in themselves. He says, except that it is written in the book before we bring it into existence, meaning that it's been written down. Verily that is easy upon Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah is talking about what, everyone? He's talking about afflictions. He's talking about calamities. And Allah ta'ala is connecting it with the what? With the qadr. He's connecting it with the divine decree and destiny and the preordainment. So listen. He says that is written in the book before we bring it into existence. Verily, that's easy upon Allah. Now listen to this. What's the benefits of this? Now listen to the ayah. لِكَيْ لَا تَأْسَوْا عَلَى مَا فَاتَكُمْ وَلَا تَفْرَحُوا بِمَا آتَاكُمْ. He says, in order that you may not be sad or grieve over what you did not attain or what you missed. For example, I wanted certain things in my life. I wanted that business, or I wanted that job, or I wanted to marry that brother, or I wanted to marry that sister, or I wanted that business venture to go through, but it didn't go through. I'm just giving numerous examples of what we're tested with every day. Or a woman would say, I had a miscarriage, I wanted to have a baby, and I just keep having miscarriages over and over and over again. I haven't had a baby yet. Why can't I have a baby? Why can't I have a child? What's going on? What did I do? You didn't do anything. If you're doing what's correct and your belief system is sound and you're saying statements that please Allah and you're doing actions that please Allah and not saying statements that shows you discontentment with the qadr of Allah, or doing actions that shows you discontentment for the qadr of Allah. So if this is your case, you have nothing to worry about. Why? Because of this ayah. He says, nothing afflicts you of afflictions in the earth or in yourselves, except that is in your book before we bring it to what? To existence. Now listen to the benefits of this. لِكَيْ لَا تَأْسَوْا عَلَى مَا فَاتَكُمْ. So all these examples that we just gave, put it in the ayah. In order that you may not grieve over what you did not attain or what missed you. Now what does the last part mean? Nor do you become arrogant over what you've been given. Nor you become arrogant over what you've been given. Verily Allah Ta'ala does not love a mukhtalin fakhur, a one who is a bragging, arrogant, boasting individual. طيب. So now, a person would think, what is the meaning of the ayah? The first part is clear, as far as in order that you may not grieve over what you did not attain. I wanted that car, I couldn't get it. I wanted to marry that sister, I couldn't marry her. I wanted to marry that brother, I couldn't marry him. I'll keep having all these miscarriages. Seem like everything is going wrong in my life, even though I'm doing the best that I can be with Allah. In order, now Allah Ta'ala has linked this all with His qadr and His decree. And from the benefits of it is that you don't be what? Sad or grieve. Because if Allah wanted you to have it, you would have had it. If Allah wanted you to have it, you would have had it. Allah would have had it, you would have had it. And if Allah wants you to have something, no one can stand in your way from the creation if Allah wants you to have it. No one. Even if the whole people in the dunya was to plot, to stop, in order to come between you and that thing, if Allah wants you to have it, you would have had it. I don't care if the sister or brother, I wanted to marry this sister, I know this brother, he came and I know he said something bad about me, I know he lied on me, so I couldn't marry her. And I say to the brothers at the end of the day, Ya akhi, if Allah wanted you to marry her, you would have been married to her right now. Obviously, Allah did not want you to have it for a reason. Same thing with sisters. I wanted this so bad. I wanted this so bad. I wanted this so. Why? I don't understand why. I just don't understand. I think somebody afflicted me with the ain. If at the end of the day, if Allah wanted you to have it, sister, you would have had it. So the first part of the ayat is clear. So what's the meaning of the last part though? In order that you not be arrogant of what you've been given. What's the meaning of that last part? Meaning that all the bounties and the blessings that Allah has given you is from Allah because Allah wanted you to have it, and He has predefined, He has decreed it, to know that this is not from yourself. That is from Allah, that He's given it to you. And as a result of it, you need to stay humble. So you do not become arrogant over what He's given you, meaning what He's preordained for you to have. Because ultimately the blessings and the bounties, all of it is from Allah. Everything. Your intelligence, the fact that you get up in the morning and go out to work and work diligently and hard. And that you've been given the tawfiq that Allah allows you to pass those tests or those examinations so you can get the degree that you have. And those high degree or high type of status or job you have, that is from what Allah has allowed you to have of intelligence, and what Allah has allowed you to what? Wake up in the morning so you can get up and do it every morning. Because if Allah willed, you could wake up one morning and Allah Ta'ala can render you to be what? Can render you to be sick so you couldn't do anything. How many people do we know have woke up one morning all of a sudden and found that their legs couldn't move? How many stories do we know that Allah Ta'ala, a person woke up in the morning and they couldn't see anymore? How many people do we know that they woke up in the morning, they could not, their back was hurting so bad, they couldn't even what? Move out of their bed. That is the blessings that Allah is saying in the ayah. What you have of good is from Allah, and He is preordained. So you do not what? You do not become haughty and arrogant of what He has given you. Because Allah does not like a bragging, boasting, arrogant individual. Why? Because it's from Allah's qadr that you have what you have. Not from yourself. So for you now, you have to ascribe the bounty and blessing to Allah alone so you can remain humble. So you remain a humble individual and you're grateful. Because if Allah willed, you will wake up in the morning and you wouldn't be able to move. As we know, there are certain stories about, I've heard, this has happened to a lot of people. I just woke up one morning and I couldn't even move my legs. So I couldn't get out and do my job. I couldn't do my job. I woke up one morning and I got up out of my bed, I just passed out. And my boss fired me. He didn't even care. And we know there are a lot of examples like that out here. I woke up one morning, I couldn't see. I lost my sight just like that. What happened? I don't know. We know stories like this. This is to show when we wake up in the morning and we're allowed to do certain things, we're allowed to do certain affairs, we ascribe those blessings, those bounties to Allah Ta'ala and to His what? His divine decree. So that's the meaning of the ayah, brothers and sisters, where it is, so you do not become depressed or sad over what you didn't attain, nor do you become arrogant of what He is giving you. Verily, Allah does not like the bragging, boasting individual. So that's the benefits of the qadr, and knowing that the bounties and blessings are from Allah Ta'ala. As we said the last part, and then we end the class off, because I think it's almost time for the salat. He says, فَمَنِ اعْتَرَفَ, whoever acknowledges the blessings of Allah upon him, it is obligatory now to know how much he needs Him, Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So all these different blessings we all know from Allah, whether it be from what? Calamities, whether it be from good things that we have. And that also coincides with the statement of the great Imam Abu Sulaiman ad-Darani, rahimahullah. Now listen to what he says, and this is exact direct correlation to what we're mentioning now. Listen to what he says. He says, his name is Sulaiman Abu Sulaiman ad-Darani. He says, كيف يعجب عاقل بعمله. Subhanallah. He says, how can a person with sound understanding be amazed at his actions? Meaning being arrogant of his actions. He says, وَإِنَّمَا يَعُدُّ الْعَمَلِ نِعْمَةً مِّنَ اللَّهِ إِنَّمَا يَنْبَغِي لَهُ أَن يَشْكُرَ وَيَتَوَاضَعَ. Verily, he counts his actions a blessing from Allah. He counts his actions as a blessing from Allah. Meaning his righteous actions is a blessing and a ni'mah from Allah. So if that's the case where Allah is giving you tawfiq to believe, and we know they're also giving you tawfiq to do righteous actions, he says it is befitting for him and obligatory for him to thank Allah and humble himself. To thank Allah and humble himself. So all these affairs is to what? Show everyone? That all these blessings that Allah has bestowed makes one now want to know how much in need he is. Because we know that disobedience can remove these blessings. Disobedience and sins can remove all of these blessings that we just mentioned. It can remove them if one does not put forth the effort in trying to protect these blessings. I think he's about to call you then. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is he calling it? I think he is. I think he is calling it. It's in now, isn't it? I think it's in. Yeah, it's in. He's calling it? Are you hearing him? I think some of the brothers and sisters might have combined their salah. I'm not sure. I think they probably combined. Some of the brothers combined? They did? Or sisters combined? They did or they didn't? Oh, okay. If you're in the masjid, you can combine. If you're in the masjid. If you're in the masjid, you can combine if it's raining. Not in your homes, because there's no hardship if you're in your house. But due to the fact that it rains, the message of Allah ﷺ during these times used to combine the salat because of the changing in the weather or the danger that it might be, or the hard circumstances or difficulty it might cause upon his ummah. He would combine the salat during these type of occasions. So I think some of the brothers probably might have combined it already. طيب. So this is all to show what, everyone? We gave an extensive or a little bit more detailed type of explanation of the blessings of Allah that I think is all called for, even though we try to keep things summarized. But I think from time to time it's good to go into detail. So now if we go on to the next statement of the great Imam, Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, he goes on to say, if you look in your books, everyone, وَهُوَ مَعْبُودِي وَلَيْسَ لِي مَعْبُودٌ سِوَاهُ, that Allah is my ma'bud, meaning he's my ma'luh. That he's my ma'bud. He's ma'budi or ma'luhi. That he's my what? He's one who I worship. And I have nothing of worship or anything as worship other than him. Then he goes on to say the Surah Al-Fatiha and explain that, in which we will have to explain the detail next week, inshallah, because the benefits of Surah Al-Fatiha cannot be explained in this short period of time that we have. And he said the dalil for that is Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praises is for Allah, Lord of the Alameen. And then he goes on to say in the last part, and anything that's other than Allah is a alam, is created. And I am one of the al-alam. I'm one of the creation. We'll stop here, inshallah. Any questions about the lesson? Oh, تفضل. I'm sorry, sister. The rain is kind of like making it a little bit more harder for me to hear you. Say it again. I'm sorry. I'll give it to her right now. I think it's Surah Al-Hadid. Here, I'll find it. ولا تفرحوا بما